Okie dokie. Okay, so I think we're good to start. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm gonna run through the agenda and then we can dive straight into it. Unfortunately, we had a last minute change with the panel. Avi was supposed to join us, couldn't make it, last minute personal issues. So we're just going to go ahead without him. But don't worry, we have tons of topics to discuss, and this will be an interesting one. So we're going to start with meeting our panelist, Alchana, that's here with me. I'm going to introduce you officially in just a second. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of training and learning. Then the power of immersive learning, which is the next level of training and learning. We're going to talk a little bit about metrics, ROI, sustainability, and how everything comes together with Matterport and Treedis. Then we're going to have some time for Q&A. As we go along, you can always drop your questions in the Q&A section. Some of them we might answer as we go along, and some we'll just leave for the end and address them when we reach the Q&A. This session is also going to be recorded and uploaded and sent out for everyone to enjoy afterwards. And that's that. So we can jump straight into it. For those of you who don't know, my name is Boaz from Treedis. I am a VP of Business Development and here today to talk about, as we said, unleashing the power of virtual training. Just in a short nutshell, what is Treedis? Treedis is basically what we do is we create immersive solutions for clients looking to leverage the power of digital twins in many different industries for many different use cases. Of course, the one we'll be discussing today is virtual training. I think a bit with a focus on the industrial manufacturers, because that's where we'll see in a second, there's a lot of demand. And with me today is Archana. I'm very happy to have you here. I have to say that it's not the first webinar we're sharing the floor on. And we had another great webinar with Matterport. So Archana from Matterport, if you want to introduce yourself in a few words.
Thank you so much, Buzz, for having me here. Super excited. Archana Shirsakar here. I lead the global strategy and operations at Matterport, and previously spent about over 10 years in facilities management and digital transformation, for industries, across manufacturing, supply chain, CPG, and so on. Boz, excited to see, what we can share from a training solution standpoint here.
Yeah, and just maybe in a nutshell, like Matterport, a short overview on who Matterport are, what do you do?
Yeah, sure. So Matterport is a AI-based enterprise spatial data platform, right? And what that means is we do, create the, immersive, right, data that you're seeing here of a facility itself. And so we have the hardware, right? It's a set of, 360 cameras. What is showcased here is a Pro 3 that you're seeing, on the right side of the screen. So the hardware essentially helps you to capture, or scan a physical space itself. And then, what we also have is a cloud-based platform that takes these scans, right, and images, processes in an AI deep neural network engine to create an immersive photorealistic view of your space itself. And that is basically what you can, expect to see on the enterprise platform. It has several capabilities in terms of being able to collaborate, interact within your environment with nodes, right, and such. And so now you're taking a physical space, turning it into a digital twin, right, of the facility itself, essentially then being able to take derivative assets such as floor plans, right? Could be a BIM, building information model, which is a crucial foundational set of data that most of the industrial manufacturing companies use today.
Yeah, and I think we'll really see how we can leverage on that digital twin once it's created. But before we do so, I want to run back a little bit to the run back in history, actually, a little bit, and talk about the evolution of training and how it kind of unfolded through the years. And training started, traditional training, and I'm talking about centuries ago, like how to become a blacksmith or how to carve wood. Traditional training was based only on a practical practice. So it was just in-field practice. Let me show you how it's done, and then practice it and practice and practice until you become a master of your craft. And then somewhere along, I think it was the 18th century or the 17th century, when the Industrial Revolution started to pick up. And then there was a big demand for these factories to train multiple people for the same type of jobs. That's when classroom training was introduced, where the information and the knowledge of that skill was passed in a classroom for many people to kind of learn and train. But then there was still that element of practice and in-field practice of that training. Then if we're looking back at the previous century, like somewhere around the 60s, we had computer-based training, where everything went from the classroom to the computer, like paper to presentation, sort of. And then in the 90s, when the internet started picking up speed, it was all about e-learning. And you can see this staggering stat of how 72% of companies were rated effective at providing training to employees via e-learning. But I think what kind of ties everything together here is that the progress was mainly done on the knowledge, on the information, unless there was always that aspect of in-field practical experience and practice that kind of stayed the same ever since traditional training, because passing the knowledge in advanced ways using technology has been great, and it's, as you can see here, it's progressed. But what about trying to make the actual environment more advanced? And that's when we're talking, we start talking about virtual training, because virtual training is not just making the knowledge, the information accessible virtually, but also the actual environment. So we're digitizing the training environment and trying to bring that in-field practice to the virtual world. And there's many benefits for that. You can simulate real-life scenarios virtually, like click on this button and see what happens, as opposed to you need to click on this button and then this and this will happen. So here in these types of virtual training methods, the users actually experience the consequences of what they're doing, instead of doing it in field, which basically provides a risk-free environment. Because if I'm going to push a button and it's the wrong button, I don't want anything bad to happen. And that's what's going to happen in the field. But if it's done virtually, all I get is an error message saying I got it wrong and I should try again. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of like the big news here is introducing the actual in-field practice virtually. And I know that a lot of Matterport have clients kind of like all across the board in industries, but Alchana, were there, like, lately, do you see like a surge in the demand for virtual training?
Absolutely, Baz. I think, like the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. An
Yeah.
immersive photorealistic, right, tour is then, worth exponential, right, value of that. And we are seeing that, quite a bit, especially, in the industrial and manufacturing setting, because no matter whom we talk to, they basically are talking about how, most of their facilities, have existed, right, for 20, 25 years,
Yeah.
and so with that comes legacy equipment and legacy workflows and legacy processes, and they're not having the workforce to support those processes, right? And so, the workforce shortage, as most of the folks, right, on the webinar, are also aware of, is a global challenge now, right? There's, I think, a statistic of about, 8 million jobs, by 2025 that are expected to be filled just right within the manufacturing industry itself. And so, so that's daunting. And, which is where training comes up, quite a bit, not from a, employee onboarding perspective alone, which we see quite a bit, but from a safety first culture, right? So, almost all companies are thinking about, how do we make sure we provide a safety first culture, we provide through our engaging training, curriculums and onboarding experiences, the fact, right, that, we care for our employees and we have a competitive, right, training curriculum compared to, others in the industry. So, use cases, from an environmental health and safety standpoint, any PPE, the protective, right, gear and equipment type training, where to your point, Baz, you can do the simulation itself, right? So if I'm a new employee, I've never stepped foot, within the facility itself. Now I know exactly what the space looks like. And, what is amazing to see with the Matterport, and Treedis solution is, the interactivity that you are able to build, right, into the, platform itself, which, I've seen a couple of examples where you can put, gloves on, you can, have these type of checklists, all very handy, right, for someone who's doing this on day one. So it gives them the confidence, right? We have seen, statistics in terms of, reduced risks and injuries in the site itself. But most importantly, it gives them a comprehensive platform, right, to be able to build immersive training, solutions, right, customized to what, those specific needs are, right, to each level within the organization itself.
Yeah, and I think I absolutely agree that the interactiveness where I do something and I get a reaction, that's where the difference is. And you mentioned those 8 million jobs. I think a lot of the people that will be manning those jobs, they're not the older generation that learned how to do these things in the old-fashioned way. These are they're now maybe kids who are going to be looking into these jobs in a few years, and these kids are connected, mobile phones, screens all day long. And I think for every big corporate industrial manufacturer, you want to have some sort of edge on your competitors to draw the quality personnel. And this is, this is basically speaking their language. If you have these types of onboarding processes, then a lot of people looking at this will say, this looks like an organization I want to work with, very innovative, always connected, not like an old style factory where my grandfather used to work. So, and you mentioned some of the use cases, actually, training, onboarding, safety. And a lot of these use cases, as you said, they're focused on the training. But I think what's very interesting to see is that the training is, they say you're always learning. So it's kind of like, it's not just to train an employee and then, okay, you're trained, you're good to go, good luck. It's, let's keep it going. And then let's use these tools for maintenance. Especially if we're looking at augmented reality, AR. So these are tools, practical tools that employees can use in the field in a day-to-day use. So it's just like what they did in training with the checklists and all the procedures and protocols that they have to do. But here it's not kind of like a training or a quiz. It's more of a guiding tool that helps reduce man error, helps become more efficient in work, help navigation, as you can see in the clip. And I think this is a great example of how training doesn't end when the training process finishes. It's always there. It's always a tool, a useful tool. And when we say, and when we're talking about how useful this tool is, I mean, there's quite a few stats here in terms of ROI, how this is benefiting the clients. So I was wondering, Archana, can you run us through like the highlights of the ROI here on these stats?
Yes, absolutely. And since we are talking about industrial manufacturing, right, segment specifically, almost any company you talk to, right, they talk about digital transformation, right, and what they are doing. And digital transformation has been a journey, right, for the last 10 years now. And a byproduct of that, right, have been the industry 4.0 initiatives, right, digitizing the workflows itself. And that's where kind of the Matterport digital twin and Treedis solution comes into play, where anyone looking to do more with less, right? So if you're looking to reduce costs, if you're looking to improve efficiencies, right, and not just from a improving productivity standpoint, but also being able to increase or maximize, right, your equipment life itself. All those are ways in which digital twins are being leveraged today. And the technology advancements itself, right, like you shared earlier, it started off with the computer-based training, right? And now you really can interact with the environments. It's about making the right technology investments to be able to get right the value across all levels of organization, which is why it's crucial to be able to drive engagement right within your employees, save from an operational efficiency standpoint, save from a reduced travel to site standpoint, now that we are in this new hybrid work environment mode. So it really, digital twins have given this, holistic view in which how the, organizations can reap value, from a multiple, progressive, right, phase standpoint. And so what you're seeing here are ways in which, organizations today are leveraging digital twins and applying these, right, for all of your initiatives. So increasing employee safety, increasing sustainability efforts. So you could basically start your digital twin project, right, apply it for saving costs from a T&E perspective, and then move into operational efficiency with being able to add your inspection checklists, right, being able to add your warranties for equipment, and saving there from an operational efficiency. I say that especially because it's never a single team, right, on the manufacturing floor or a plant floor. When you're working with facilities managers, they have, a set of mechanical engineers, they might have electrical engineers, they have several vendors, right, that they're working with, at all times. They have design engineers and teams as well, right, who are thinking about what new equipment needs to be installed. And in all of these scenarios, right, there is a set amount of baseline training that's involved, which is where, right, Treedis really comes into play, because you have that consistency in training and consistency in the knowledge in terms of visually being able to share what are key, right, aspects and key points of interest in the environment everyone needs to be aware of, right, before they set foot, on the facility itself. I think sustainability goes without saying. I know you'll touch upon that, in a second. But employee safety, obviously crucial, from a safety culture, right, perspective. But time and again, we see a lot of companies, reporting liability and risk-related issues, right, which run into multi-million dollars, at times, right, where a risk could even result in losing their license to do business, right, in a certain jurisdiction. And so those are all great reasons to start thinking about how do I reduce my risk from a regulatory compliance standpoint while increasing safety, and driving costs down. So those would be kind of my core, value pillars when you think about, digitizing your training curriculums.
Yeah, and I think what's really staggering is that all these, different use cases and different areas where we save, it all comes down to the same digital twin. It's not like we need to create several digital twins. It's you have the factory or the facility, you capture it once, and then, as you mentioned in the introduction, we have the Matterport model, and then there's so many things we can do with it. It's essentially another tool. And when you use the same tool to reduce costs in so many different aspects, like we just seen, that even makes, I think, the return on investment even higher and more interesting. And like you said,
absolutely right.
And as you mentioned today, it can't be just about ROI, even though a lot of people think it is. But we also have to bear in mind that sustainability has become a very big part of every company's goals, and it's always been taken into account. And there's some stats here that we can go through. I think it's just great that companies, they obviously come in because the initial kind of a way that they feel that intrigued about these solutions is initially the ROI, because obviously these companies are driven. They're not a charity funds or anything like that. They have to become more efficient. But then once they see the additional sustainability in benefits that come with it, that just makes it much easier to say, well, we have to do this. I mean, and I think these stats are based on an actual Matterport use case, Archana?
That's right, Boz, and not enough is said about sustainability, right? And by no means are manufacturing, companies working right from a view of, just environment alone. What I mean by that is ESG, right? The environmental social governance, right? Reporting guidelines and the recent changes that have happened, since the last, 24 months or so, means that there are financial implications to firms not adopting sustainability initiatives. And so, there is a really great case from a financial standpoint to why sustainability is crucial, not to mention, obviously, the environmental impact alone. And from that standpoint, right, what I think there was another stat that said approximately, I think 95 to 98% of all Fortune 500 companies have signed the net zero initiative to basically be carbon neutral by 2050. And I don't know if any one of them has figured out how, but it's a journey, right? And this again, training comes, definitely as one of the key ways, right, that they can make an impact to this change, essentially because every single employee, right, is going to touch training. You're talking about organizations with 30, 50, 100,000 plus employees. And guess what? Most of them happen to be, the majority of them are in that technician, operator, type of a designation where they are working, right, in hazardous environments, in environments that they've never stepped foot in it, with critical infrastructure, right? And as little process and training as they could get, right, or little documentation. And which is why I think training and even sustainability is important. The other great use case that I can share here is from a manufacturing standpoint. We hear a lot of customers talking about we are consolidating operations, right? So they're moving out of a continent, and moving their manufacturing facilities to a different one. Now, how are they going to make sure their teams gain the knowledge right, at one of their legacy facilities as they move all their operations across the globe in a different region, right? Guess what they do today? They actually send, team members flying
Really?
out, spend a week, 2 week, right, at the site talking to the folks, which is great, right? You're learning, through walking physically. But once they come back, right, all
That's
they have to
it.
do is document this information, to the most part, take 2D images, right, so to speak.
Mhm.
But the value that, the training, right, that you're able to create from a training solution standpoint is it stays, right, for perpetuity for anyone who's setting up this new plan to be able to gain, right, valuable insights in terms of what that, plant look like and build some training solutions around it. And so these are just stats for 7 team members for 5 months, right? That really, showcases the deep impact that you can make in terms of, being able to drive sustainability. And then, obviously from a budget standpoint, reduce costs, right? Because
Yeah.
maybe now you just need to send 3 and not 7, and then have, right, that sort of like a training module available to hundreds of team members, right? Any of the satellite, sites for that matter.
Yeah, that's I wasn't aware actually of that, the way that they shift around the globe. I'm just thinking about the language barrier. I mean, sometimes
Absolutely.
these countries, you send someone
Totally.
and they all have to kind of communicate in broken English because none of them are native English speakers. So yeah, I mean, it's really out there, and all these virtual solutions can obviously be translated to the local languages. And like you said, once it's there for good. It's going to be serving the organization for years to come. It's not just a one-time thing. Yeah, sustainability is it's becoming more and more, I won't say popular, but I think it's becoming more and more in the awareness. People and companies are becoming more and more aware about it. So we spoke about like virtual training in general and how, how it kind of unfolded through the years and where it's heading at. And at the end of the day, I know that Matterport and Treedis, we do amazing things together. And it's just, I wanted to share with our audience today on how simple it is to get started with Matterport and Treedis. And I know that, Archana, you can share a little bit about how to get started with Matterport, and then I can pick it up and explain how to kind of leverage that and use it within Treedis. So if let's say tomorrow morning, industrial manufacturer somewhere has several sites, he wants to get going, what would be how would he get started?
Yeah, no, I think, great question, because we get that a lot. It's a great solution. How quickly can we do this? And as I mentioned before, it's basically scan or capture, right? We would want to, put it, and then upload. Upload is basically uploading, right, the scanned and the, capture images. And so the scan and capture, you could do the DIY mode, which is, right, get one of the Pro 2s or Pro 3 cameras, which are the most economical, right, in the range, and then upload yourself. Or we also have capture services technicians who can do it for you. And I suggest that, as you're experimenting, right, with this type of solution, from there, obviously, once it's uploaded, it's all very automatic. Several folks ask, well, do I need to do this myself? Do I need to stitch these images? And no, it's all automatic and available within a couple of hours within your Matterport platform account itself. And then what is notable about the Treedis solution, right, and what we have been able to accomplish is within, isn't it like, a very, very short time, even within, some examples where we were at events and in less than 24 hours, where you're able to superimpose avatars, right, or some basic, training and whatnot, within the digital twin itself. So that's basically, what you can accomplish. And, the metrics are great too, because, if you can't measure it, you don't know how much you've improved, right? Or you can't
Exactly.
really share the ROI itself. So, what cannot be measured cannot be managed, I think is kind of that saying from Peter Drucker. And so we do have, several ways you can track the insights, and share some data-driven KPIs with your senior leadership, right? Within
Yes.
Matterport alone, there is a way to track the number of users, number of views, which helps you drive the engagement. And here are just some of them, right? So 300% higher engagement with digital twins, because guess what? If I'm a technician, I could do one tour of the facility during my training day and probably spend 20 minutes at the most without avoiding any disruptions to understand the equipment that I'm servicing. Versus I could probably review the exact same location or probably even browse through the rest of the facility for how many ever times and for however long that I want to, right? Which is kind of immense value in terms of what you can accomplish. And so cost savings if you're not at the same site. So we have tracked that, as you have seen for some of our customers. But Boz, maybe you can share, right, the analytics layer with Treedis itself in terms of, several metrics that you're able to attach, in addition to what Matterport provides.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, once you have it up and running, it's all about the content and the engagement that you want to create with the users, with the employees, and that content can come in many different ways. The more variety, the better in terms of retaining the information when we're talking about training. So it can be visuals, videos, images. It can be sound, voiceovers. Implementing 3D objects or models like avatars or moving parts, just to simulate that a live environment that really is in the physical site. And then when we want to measure how the employees are interacting and how they're performing on these training models, I think this is where there's no competition with the physical, because when I send out an employee to a site and I want him to go through a specific procedure, protocol, just so he can experience it and train, I don't know, unless I'm walking right next to him or I'm monitoring him at all times, I don't know how long it took him, where he kind of had an easier time, where he was struggling. I don't know if he actually went through all the stations on the checklist. I don't know if he fully understood it or he just kind of went with the flow. Those, I cannot do anything of that in the physical, but in the virtual, everything is laying down right in front of us. I can see what users are looking at. I have a heat map of the model. I can see where each employee has been going, how he's been performing on these training models. We create scoring systems. So then the employer just has, and obviously this can be integrated with the organization's LMS, the learning machine systems. So the employer just gets all this data right in front of him, where he sees how the employees are performing on these training models, or even if it's a maintenance checklist. And then that valuable analytics, just like you said, that's where the ROI can be proven. That's where, like you said, to the higher management, this is where they see, okay, this is actually working. This is not just a nice to have feature, something that shows that we're technologically advanced. It's actually showing value. And yeah, you can see some of the stats here. They're always great to see. So that kind of leads us to the Q&A. And I did see some questions as we went. Someone asked how to get started. I think we kind of tackled that beforehand. And if there's any further questions, you can always reach out to one of us or just through the general channels on the websites, Matterport and Treedis. like you said, Alchana, it's very simple. Also, if you just want to taste the soup before you eat the whole bowl, it's very easy to do to get something started. Connect Treedis, add all the content, and create these training models, even if it's just for a proof of concept. We had some questions about analytics that we also touched on just now, and a few other questions that Noemi, that was kind of backstage here with us, I didn't mention it, so she picked up some of these questions as we went along. I'm just going to see if there are any other questions that anyone wants to drop. No, I think we're good. Oh, no, chat. Okay.
I just shared my email in case anyone has
great.
questions,
Yeah.
post the webinar itself. But yeah, no, I think we, did cover most of the questions. I saw a couple, come in from Emil here about collaborative demos. I'm guessing by collaborative, you mean, right, any interactivity that you can, build. So absolutely, right, something that we can do. And I think those were the examples that, Baz was getting at. Baz, if you don't mind, go, click on the what is Treedis slide real quick, where if you see the list of customers, really is, across a wide segment of industries. So, I really urge you to, start thinking about what are, training programs that are crucial for your company as a brand, right? What are crucial from a manufacturing standpoint that are really going to move the dial in terms of enhanced production, right? Or reduce costs, right? Or if it's a brand new facility, get your operators up and running as soon as possible, right? And so those would be ways in which you can apply and see where to get started, right? And build, the interactivity itself. And then collaboration is within the Matterport platform as well, where you can tag someone very similar to social media. You could do an @ right, so and so. How does this particular equipment work, right? Would you add such and such note to the checklist in addition to what's available, right? And so all of that documentation and collaboration can happen within the platform. And so the moment you add a note, very similar to systems that you may have, worked on, there's an email, right, that gets generated, that gets sent, to those specific individuals. And then can we make use of Treedis staged and added elements like notes, images, and avatars, right? Absolutely. I think, so the way I look at it, if you want a bare bones solution, which is extremely economical, then absolutely, right? Your baseline would be do the Matterport digital twin, and then add a couple of what I like to call bells and whistles with an avatar, maybe of your CEO or, right, any of your key personnel, welcoming your employees or showcasing, right, key areas of the facility. Now, when you want a little bit more interactivity, right, and you have invested in AR, VR equipment itself, absolutely. I think, Baz and his team has been amazing with being able to customize the solutions, to the customer's needs. And so, so it's very bespoke in terms of, what, clients are usually looking for. So hopefully, that answers your questions.
And a lot of these clients that you see here were actually joint projects that Treedis did together with Matterport. I mean, it's a wonderful partnership with value for everyone at the table. And we did actually get another question from Marcela regarding her Treedis subscription. So Marcela, you can reach out to us on the support channel and ask about specific features. We'd love to help you there. And then Emil asked about demos that he or she can share for a specific project for their clients. So again, I'm going to say the best way to do that is to reach out to the support. And if there's a specific use case that you're looking for, I mean, there's obviously a lot of content on the websites, both Treedis and Matterport, but if there's something specific, you can reach out to us and we'd be happy to help. And then I see one last question. Where do both
ADA requirements,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to take that? Yeah, I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can add to it and then, feel free to chime in. Yeah, so I mean, it's an amazing, excellent question, by the way, right? Because like I said, I think sustainability, accessibility, we don't talk as much. But,
Right.
What is great with the Matterport, digital twins is you actually can track accessibility to a space automatically, because guess what you're doing, right? You have a physical space, now you're digitizing it. And so from there, right, what you do with the data and the spatial digital twin itself, is kind of an art of the possible discussion there. Within the ADA framework, Airbnb is a great example, right, where, as you're familiar, right, they have a platform where you can, basically, right, rent, or use their, certain facilities. And so from that standpoint, you actually can track which of the spaces, are ADA compliant. And so with a Treedis solution, where I see, would be of great value is within a manufacturing setting as well, to be able to call out spaces, right, or exits or entranceways, or, any informational, boards that you might have, which, a lot of manufacturing, sites have this information, but it's not as well displayed or not as evident. But, all those would be, easily things that you can, set up, stand out, and from a requirements, perspective, call out, right, during the, training itself, and make it, part of like your standard package, that you can share as part of marketing too, right?
Yeah.
And so, this is a great, training solution, but think of it as if you're doing, an employee engagement, type of a campaign within, your company itself, build it with Treedis, right? Build it with all the great ways your brand, right, and your facilities and spaces, right, are all, kind of sharing the same message, which might not be as evident sometimes with all the words. But, employees, love taking a look at the spaces, especially if I'm in a, Georgia, Atlanta plant that I'm working in, and, there's a facility in Israel or Ireland, there is no way I have access to that information, versus now I'm able to share some innovative ideas, right, or get trained, on similar facilities that might be halfway across the globe that otherwise, right, I don't have access to. So all great questions. Thank you so much, for having me, Buzz.
You picked that last one, you picked that up much better than I would. So so yeah, thanks for that. And in general, I think we're gonna wrap up for now. Any other questions, you can reach out to us and we'd be happy to answer. Archana, again, thank you very, very much for taking your time today and joining us. And I'll see you next time, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, no matter which part of the globe you're in, have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks again, Buzz. Yeah, appreciate it.
Bye-bye.